My name is Amara Whitfield, and at 62, I had learned to measure the world in quiet routines and small comforts. Charleston's morning air carried the scent of salt and jasmine as I arranged my teacups on the porch, savoring a rare moment of calm before the day began. My daughter, Lydia, had called early that morning, her voice unusually bright, almost rehearsed. "Mom, I have something special for you," she said, almost skipping over words, her excitement palpable. I smiled, anticipating a modest gesture, perhaps a dinner or a weekend outing. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. There she was, holding a golden envelope, her eyes glinting with a combination of pride and something I couldn't quite place. "Mom, open it," she urged. Inside were 2 sleek cruise tickets, the kind reserved for first-class travelers. A Caribbean voyage. 7 days among islands I had only seen in magazines, sailing on water as clear as glass. My heart swelled, a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. Tears pricked my eyes. "Lydia, this is extravagant," I whispered. "Mom, you deserve it. You've worked so hard, given so much," she said, her hand brushing mine in a gesture that should have felt comforting. And yet, beneath her words, there was a subtle tension I couldn't ignore. Her smile lingered a moment too long. Her eyes flicking past me as if checking something unseen. I nodded, forcing my voice into a bright, thankful tone. "It's perfect. I can't wait," as I set the envelope on the counter. A small unease tickled the back of my mind. A whisper I pushed aside. I was excited. Truly. But a shadow of hesitation lingered. Something about this gift felt too calculated, too deliberate, and then, a thought I didn't yet recognize. I had forgotten my blood pressure medication inside the house. I stepped back into the house, closing the door quietly behind me so as not to alert Lydia. My hand paused on the doorknob to the medicine cabinet as I realized I had left my blood pressure pills on the counter. That's when I heard it, Lydia's voice. Sharp and low, coming from the living room. "Don't worry, honey. She won't suspect a thing. Once she's on the cruise, it'll be easy to make it look like an accident," she said. The words froze me in place, blood rushing to my ears. My stomach dropped as I crouched just out of sight, straining to hear more. A second voice, softer, but equally chilling, responded, "Are you sure about this timing? You don't want any mistakes." "Yes. It's perfect," Lydia said. "Once she's gone, the insurance covers everything, and the house sale will clear our debts. It'll be clean. No one will question a thing." I leaned against the wall, a trembling mixture of disbelief and rage coursing through me. The golden envelope, the carefully chosen cruise, the smiles and hand-holding, all of it had been a facade. My own daughter, plotting to harm me for money. I swallowed hard, forcing my breathing to calm. I had raised her with love, nurtured her through school projects, wiped away her tears in the middle of the night. And now, she treated me as an obstacle, a means to an end. I edged back toward the hallway, my mind racing. Survival was suddenly urgent, concrete, unavoidable. Every detail I had noticed about the cruise, the schedule, the cabin assignments, the ship's layout flashed through my mind like notes in a mental map. I straightened my spine and whispered under my breath, "If this is what you think I am, Lydia, you're about to learn how wrong you are." The pills would have to wait. I had to get to the cruise. And I had to do it knowing that every step I took could bring me closer to the danger she had set in motion. I sat on the edge of my bed, the golden cruise envelope lying untouched beside me, and tried to steady my racing heart. The words I had overheard replayed endlessly in my mind. each repetition sharpening the sharp edge of disbelief. Lydia, my daughter, had plotted against me. A one-way ticket, hidden motives, a plan to turn what should have been a gift into a trap. I could feel the weight of every year spent caring for her pressing down on my chest. But beneath the shock, a resolve began to take shape. I took a deep breath and reached for the small notebook I kept for everyday reminders. Tonight, it would become a strategy journal. Every detail I knew about the cruise, the itinerary, the cabin assignments, the ship's layout I jotted down. Each hallway, staircase, and public space became a mental map in my mind. I reminded myself that fear could be an ally if channeled with purpose. I needed allies. A cruise was a controlled environment, but there would be strangers, crew members, and passengers I could observe without raising suspicion. I made a mental list of who might be useful: the attentive concierge, the flighty steward, anyone with eyes and ears who might notice unusual behavior. Next, evidence. I couldn't act blindly. Any conversation overheard, any suspicious gesture, everything would need to be documented. My phone, small and unassuming, would become my lifeline. I practiced quick notes, imagining conversations frozen in time, messages I could later show to authorities. Finally, survival. I reminded myself to stay calm, to move deliberately, and to trust my instincts. This was no longer about a luxurious escape. It was a test of my wit, my experience, and my resilience. I tightened the straps on my bag, feeling a strange surge of energy. If Lydia thought she had underestimated me, she was wrong. I would navigate this cruise with eyes wide open, every step calculated, every moment an opportunity. Tonight, the planning began, and by dawn, I would board with a mind as sharp as the ocean air. I sank into the armchair by the window, staring out at the Charleston streets bathed in early morning sunlight. My thoughts drifted, unbidden, to the years that had shaped me: the long nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices no one had ever noticed. I had married young, just 20, full of hope and love for the family I was about to create. Michael's father had been kind, but life had other plans. After his death, I had raised Lydia alone, juggling work and motherhood, never allowing myself the luxury of rest. I remembered the tiny apartment where Lydia had learned to walk, her first steps unsteady but determined. I had worked 3 jobs at a time: library shifts, tutoring children in the evenings, sewing clothes for extra money so she could have the best education, the best opportunities I could afford. The years blurred into a montage of birthday parties I barely enjoyed, school projects I painstakingly guided, and countless dinners I skipped so she could have seconds. Every choice, every compromise, had been for her. And now, hearing her plotting to betray me, the depth of that devotion struck me harder than any physical blow ever could. Every memory of sleepless nights and skipped meals came back in vivid clarity. I had hoped, foolishly, that gratitude and love would be the natural returns on such a lifetime of giving. Instead, I felt the cold realization that I had misjudged the person I had nurtured most. I leaned back, letting the weight of these reflections settle. It wasn't just the money or the insurance, though both were considerable. It was the betrayal itself. The knowing that my daughter saw me as a means to an end rather than a mother to love and respect. The sting was personal, profound, and it fueled a fire I hadn't known still burned inside me. I picked up my notebook again, running my fingers over the page where I had started mapping the cruise. The past and the present converged in that moment. The years of sacrifice had not left me powerless. They had honed my instincts, sharpened my resolve. I would not be the victim she assumed I was. My experiences, every hardship and every choice I had made, had prepared me for this. If Lydia believed she could outsmart her mother, she was about to learn that resilience is forged through decades, and that a lifetime of devotion can become the strongest weapon when survival is on the line. The morning sun glinted off the waves as I approached the cruise terminal, my suitcase rolling steadily beside me. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the knowledge of what I had overheard. Passengers laughed and chatted around me, their excitement contagious. Yet I moved with deliberate caution, scanning faces, noting luggage, entrances, and exits as if the terminal itself held secrets. I kept my voice light and my smile practiced when the attendant checked my documents. "First time on a cruise?" "Ma'am?" he asked. I nodded, keeping my tone airy, masking the tension, nodding my stomach. Every gesture mattered. No one could suspect the storm raging inside me. Once on board, the ship unfolded like a floating city, grand staircases, sparkling chandeliers, and corridors lined with polished wood created an almost dreamlike atmosphere. Yet every polished surface became part of my mental map. Cameras, emergency exits, service doors, each was a potential key to survival. I wandered through the main lobby, subtly observing passengers. Families clustered around. Couples posed for photos. Older travelers lounged with contented smiles amid the cheerful chaos. I noted patterns, staff moving methodically, security personnel stationed discreetly, and the ways people unconsciously reveal themselves. My senses sharpened with every observation. Back in my cabin, I let my suitcase drop onto the bed and closed the door quietly. The balcony offered a perfect view of the deck, but also a potential point of vulnerability. I paced slowly, rehearsing what I would do if someone tried to isolate me or manipulate the situation. My phone sat on the nightstand, ready to capture any hint of deceit. As the ship prepared to depart, I felt a flicker of determination. Fear lingered, but it was no longer paralyzing. Each corner, each hallway I had memorized, each pattern I had observed, became part of a plan. Boarding the cruise was no longer just a step toward vacation. It was the first move in a carefully plotted game of survival. I found myself lingering near the ship's library, the quiet corner of the deck offering a rare moment of solitude. As I adjusted my cardigan, a woman's voice startled me. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, her tone gentle but steady. I looked up to see a woman about my age, silver-streaked hair tucked neatly behind her ears, eyes sharp and assessing. "No, please," I said, gesturing to the empty chair. She settled beside me, placing a small notebook on the table, the kind worn from frequent use. "I'm Marisol," she said. "Miami. First cruise in years. You, Amara," I replied cautiously. "Charleston." Her gaze flicked around the library with subtle precision. "You seem alert," she said, leaning slightly closer. "Not everyone on a cruise is here just to relax. Some people watch. Others wait. I've learned to notice patterns over the years." A strange comfort settled over me. Here was someone who understood observation without judgment. Someone who could sense that my anxiety was more than ordinary travel nerves. I nodded slowly, deciding to trust this intuition over the next hour. We shared small stories. Marisol's widowhood, years managing her own business, her children grown and scattered. Each revelation reinforced a quiet bond, a mutual understanding that life had taught us vigilance. I allowed myself to explain, in vague terms, that I needed to watch the ship and remain cautious, testing her reaction. She didn't flinch or dismiss me. Instead, she offered a plan we would observe together, watch for anomalies, and keep notes. By the time lunch was served in the main dining hall, our alliance was quietly cemented. We split the room into sections, noting staff, fellow passengers, and anyone behaving unusually. I felt a flicker of relief. I was no longer alone in navigating the hidden dangers of this voyage. With Marisol beside me, my strategy began to take form, sharpened by shared eyes and a shared purpose. Every glance, every step we took on the ship became part of a larger map, a coordinated effort that turned uncertainty into cautious confidence. The evening breeze carried the distant laughter of passengers as I leaned against the railing of the top deck, pretending to admire the horizon while scanning the crowd below. Something, or rather someone, had caught my eye earlier in the day. A crew member, dressed in the standard Navy uniform, moved with a precision that felt deliberate, too calculated to be mere routine. Each time I glanced in his direction, he appeared somewhere along my path, subtly aligning his movements with mine. I nudged Marisol, who was seated nearby with her notebook open. "Do you see him?" I whispered. She followed my gaze, her brow furrowing as she tracked his movements. "Yes," she said softly. "He's focused on you. Too focused." We spent the next hour observing him, recording patterns in our minds and noting the times he lingered near staircases or corners that led to my cabin. Every step he took, every glance he cast, heightened my pulse. The ship's festive energy continued around us: music, chatter, clinking glasses, but to me, it was a stage for something far more sinister. Marisol suggested a trap, her voice steady and pragmatic. "We need to create a situation where he reveals his intent without realizing it. We can't confront him directly yet." I nodded, already running through scenarios in my mind. Every hallway, elevator, and lounge became a piece in a mental chessboard. We positioned ourselves strategically, splitting the public areas into segments to ensure no movement went unnoticed. I walked casually toward the library while Marisol subtly shifted, ensuring he followed. When he did, it was barely perceptible to anyone else. But to us, it confirmed our suspicions he was tracking me deliberately. Later, in my cabin, I sat on the edge of the bed, going over the patterns and rehearsing responses. The weight of the danger pressed heavily against my chest, but beneath it, a simmering determination rose. Each observation, each calculated movement, became part of a larger strategy. If this man was here for Lydia's plan, we would not leave the outcome to chance. The next moves had to be precise, measured, and swift. With Marisol at my side, I was no longer just a target, I was an active player, ready to turn the watcher's attention into a trap that he would never see coming. The gala party's music swelled through the grand ballroom as I adjusted my emerald dress and walked with deliberate grace. Each step measured, each gesture casual. Around me, passengers twirled and laughed, oblivious to the tension that coiled tightly around me like a second skin. Marisol stayed close, her calm presence a steadying anchor. Together, we had mapped the night in meticulous detail, predicting where the watcher might appear and how he would act. I positioned myself near the slot machines, feigning distraction as I pretended to fumble with coins, swaying lightly as if tipsy from an early cocktail. Marisol moved to a nearby table, her notebook open and pen poised, observing silently. It wasn't long before he appeared, the same crew member who had haunted my steps all week, now approaching with an air of cautious confidence, certain I was unaware. "Are you all right?" "Ma'am," he asked, leaning closer, his tone falsely friendly. I slurred a playful laugh, letting my eyes meet his just enough to seem vulnerable. "Oh, I think I had one too many drinks," I replied, exaggerating the stumble. His eyes brightened slightly. He had taken the bait. As he moved closer, Marisol subtly signaled the security team stationed discreetly along the hallways. I continued to play the part, engaging him in trivial chatter while ensuring every movement was captured by the officer's hidden vantage points. When he reached for the slot machine's counter, one hand brushing the edge as if to steady himself near me, it was the confirmation they needed. In a coordinated sweep, 3 security officers emerged silently from the shadows, surrounding him from both sides. He froze, eyes widening as the reality of the situation hit him. He attempted to explain, stammering, insisting he had entered the wrong room, but the officers were unmoved. A small vial of lock-picking tools and a cell phone filled with messages from Lydia were found in his pockets, irrefutable evidence linking him to the plot. I stepped back, letting a mixture of relief and triumph wash over me. The ballroom's music, once a backdrop for tension, now felt distant as the security team escorted him away. Marisol's hand brushed mine, a silent acknowledgement of victory. For the first time that week, I allowed myself to breathe fully. Lydia's plan, crafted with so much calculation, had been revealed in its entirety. The hunter had been ensnared, and the night's elegant dance had turned into a decisive, carefully executed victory. By the time the cruise docked in Miami, the weight that had pressed on my chest for days finally began to lift, though not completely. Detective Victor met me at the terminal, his presence calm and assuring. Together, we walked through the evidence I had gathered, the messages on the accomplice's phone, the detailed notes Marisol and I had compiled, the observations of his movements, and the documentation of Lydia's deliberate omissions. The authorities moved quickly, with a combination of the detective's expertise and the security team's accounts from the ship. A formal case was built. When the arrests were made, I watched from a safe distance, a cold sense of vindication settling over me. Lydia's carefully constructed facade of concern had been shattered, replaced with the reality of her actions. The accomplice's testimony, corroborated by every record we had taken, left no room for doubt. Sitting in my temporary apartment that evening, I finally allowed myself to exhale. Every phone call, every step along the ship, every cautious glance now made sense as part of a larger plan I had executed with precision. I had survived. More than that, justice had been served. The relief washed over me. It was tinged with sadness. The daughter I had raised, nurtured, and sacrificed for had become the architect of my potential demise. Yet, knowing that the law recognized the severity of her actions, that she would face consequences and that my safety was secured, I felt a quiet strength returning. The aftermath was orderly, procedural, and yet deeply personal. Victories are often measured in small, precise details: a signed affidavit, a confirmed arrest, the removal of threat. Each one reinforced that I had not only protected myself, but ensured that deception and malice could not go unpunished. For the first time in days, I felt grounded. The danger had passed, and the careful orchestration of evidence, observation, and patience had guaranteed that truth and justice prevailed. The path ahead was mine to choose, free from fear and manipulation. Back in Charleston, the streets, the harbor breeze, and the quiet hum of daily life welcomed me into a world I had fought to reclaim. I unpacked my belongings in my modest apartment, each item a reminder that this space belonged entirely to me, free from manipulation, fear, or control. I filled my days with pursuits long postponed: volunteering at the library, attending dance classes, and reconnecting with friends who had quietly supported me over the years. Marisol remained a constant presence, a reminder of trust and solidarity, her companionship proving that alliances can be forged even in unexpected places. Reflecting on the cruise, I realized the danger I had faced revealed more than my daughter's betrayal. It revealed the strength, patience, and resilience I had carried all along. Independence is not given. It is reclaimed. Freedom is not merely absence of threat. It is the courage to live fully, with awareness and dignity. I was Amara Whitfield, reborn, empowered, and ready to live a life that honored every lesson hardship had taught me, finally embracing my own worth and strength.